You need to see this video because in this one, we are hacking my own created game. Let's go. So this is the game that I created for a hackathon. It's called Flashback. And in this one, we are actually gonna go and create a new game. And inside here, when we start the game, we essentially get a couple of blocks, memory blocks, and we have to identify which are the matching blocks. So if I click one and click second, if they don't match, they're flipped back. But I need to remember which blocks contains which one. For example, I have not found any yet. I do remember this one and this one. Now it's a match and I got a score. Now what if we could hack this one? So that's what I'm gonna do now. So for that, we are going to actually go and write a script. So first of all, let's see what we have and how we can hack this one. There is a bug right now in the application which actually allows to do the hack, and that is that if you go and inspect these elements, you are able to see them in the HTML. So if I go ahead and check this other one, which is hidden right now, which is this one, I can actually go and see its value. So here you could go and actually check this. Now this is not really feasible within a game because other people could actually finish faster than how much time you would take into figuring all of these out and kind of matching them. So we need a script. We need a fast script that does the job. So for example, I'm going to start with creating an element. So I'm going to create an element, or actually I'm going to say something like emoji elements equals, and then we are going to get some elements. So we are using the card inner class because here on each of these emojis we have this card inner class, which means that if I do this, I'm going to get all of the emoji elements just like this. Now these are 14 different elements, as you can see, from 0 to 13, which means that we have one for each one. Now what I need to do is to match these somehow and also make sure that once that's done, I can click on the matches. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually loop over these and then find out the matches and then just execute them. Along with this emoji elements, I can now run a loop and find out each element and then just trigger a click on that one. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to quickly say for, and I'm going to write a loop. So I can say simply let I equals to 0, len equals to emoji elements dot length, and then I can say I less than length or len, and then I can say I plus plus. Now what we need to do is that for each element we need to find out the next matching pair. So for example, if I'm looking at the first element at index 0, then I need to start the search from 1. Similarly, if I start from, let's say, 6th, then I need to go from 7th and so on. So I'm going to run another loop here, and I can simply say something like for, and here we can say something like j, or let j equals to I plus 1, and then j less than len, and then j plus plus. And then all we need to do is just use all of these two things and kind of call these methods. Now what I want to do is essentially first make sure that whatever element I'm looping on or currently on, it's not matched, and this is important to do so. So I have to put a condition here, and then I can say something like, or actually let's take some variables here. So for example, we say something like const element in, or current element, and then here we can say something like emoji elements and then I. So which means that if we start from 0, that's going to be the first element. Then we are going to take this new element, and then we can say something like const, here we could say element to compare equals, and then we got the same thing but with j. So we get the second element. In the case of starting from 0, the first time it's going to be the first element. Then we first need to check if it has not been matched. So what I want to do is I want to have an array and sort of keep this tab where I can say, hey, if this particular element has been matched or not. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just create an array, sort of say matched element indices, and here I'm going to just have this an empty array. But if something matches, we are going to push that inside this array. So let's say we have some condition here. Once that happens, what I want to do is essentially I want to say something like, in this case we matched, and when we matched we should do matched elements or element indices dot push, and then here we have the index, which is j. So that is the element to compare an element matched, for example. But we also want to push in this case I as well, so that's not taken care of as well. Now that we have this, we need to put the condition here. So what do we need to find out here? Since this is a document element, what we want to do is that if I go and take this element into a global variable, let's say temp1, I can check temp1 dot text content, and here you can see that it gets the emoji itself, right? So I can check those two elements and kind of get out the emoji value. So I'm going to quickly go here, and in the check, I can simply say current element dot text content equals element to compare, and here I can simply say dot text content. If they both match, then we say that this is matched and we are good. Once we have found a match, we need to break the loop here. But before that, we're going to say console.log, and here we can say matched, and then here we are going to essentially do I and j. So we can say I, or we can actually use it in this way, match elements, and we can say something like I and j. So here we can say I, and here we can say j, right? So we got this now. We're going to put a semicolon here. And now we also need to make sure that once we have found a match, we are not trying to compare this again. So let's suppose once we find the match, we are supposed to get out of this loop. So we are going to say break. Now we don't need to run the loop again for any other items. For example, let's say we are talking about the first element. If we find that the third element is equal to the first one, so index 0 and index 1 to 3, if they are the same elements, then we don't need to check anymore. Like 4, 5, 6, we don't need to do that. So we're going to loop out or break out of this loop and continue the top loop and then try for the second item, right? Now what I want to do is also when we are checking for a loop, let's suppose we were trying to find the 0 element or trying to find a match for it, and we found this one at 3. Now we have already found it, right? So when I start for the next element and now I'm trying to find a match for this particular element, should I again check this one? No, because we already found it for the previous one. So what we need to do is that if an element has already been matched, we don't need to check it. That's what we are going to do here. We are going to say if this particular j element is actually included in this indices, then we just skip this. So we say something like if matched element indices dot includes, and here we say j, then we just need to do a continue here, which means that it's just going to skip this iteration and go to the next j. It's going to skip this element but then go to this one, and then goes on and on for the search until it finds something. All right, so now that we have done this, we can quickly go ahead and run the loop and see what is outputted, and I'm hoping that it would be good. But since I'm doing a console log development, I'm not really sure how that's gonna go. So let's hit enter. There we go. Unexpected token, pipe sign. Where do we have this pipe sign? Now let's try to find out.
A few moments later.
So I actually found it, and it's so sneaky. Here it is. So I'm gonna comment this or remove this, and now I'm gonna hit enter. There we go. You can see that we got match 0 with 7, 1 with 10, 2 with 5, 3 with 8, 4 with 6. And this goes on and on. And you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We should have only 7 of these. But the fun fact here is that I still see that we have some of the overlap. So we don't have 7, we actually have 8 of these, which means that our code can be improved. And I know the reason behind this. And the reason is that we have this includes condition here, which prevents us to search for that item again. But when it comes to in the first loop, when it comes to this element, then it does it again, and that is wrong. For example, let's suppose we are searching for zeros match, which is found at 3. Now when I find the match for second, that's also found. When I find the match of third, that's also found. But then should I be actually finding the match for this one? I don't think so, because this one is also a match for this one. So these were already matched together. So I need to put this if condition that we have in here as well for the top loop as well. So I'm going to actually do this kind of copy this and then also loop it or kind of paste it here. So we are tackling the conditions accordingly. All right, so I'm going to refresh this and I'm going to paste this and also fix one mistake, that this is using j here. J doesn't exist here. We need to check I. And in that case, if I hit enter, you see we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 records. Yay! Because now we got accurate results. 0 is compared with 10. So if I click 0 here, that means that if I go to 10, which should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, this one, these are exactly the same. Yay! 1 should be with 4 and 2 should be with 3. Similarly, 5 would be with 11, and then we got 6. This should be with 8, and then we got 7 with 9, and finally 12 and 13. Yay! So now we have kind of hacked my own game. It's time to actually have this do it automatically instead of me comparing all of that, because even if I'm doing this, it takes a lot of time. So I'm going to start a new game now, and then we are going to open it, and now I can quickly get the data again once the game starts. So here you can see that I can quickly go and change this to I to fix this. And now if I hit enter, we get all of the elements. This time we have a different set of matching pairs. But what if we could actually have this clickable, or click on these elements and finish the game like within seconds? So for that, I'm going to create actually a couple of functions. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on each element, but then I'm going to wait a bit between different matches. For example, if I'm going to do a first match, I'm going to pause for a while and then do second match and third match, because this actually takes some time for the animation and blocks the UI. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go create a function called const click matches, and here what I'm going to do is this, right? We got some matches, so whenever we get a match, we can add that to sort of an array. So here we can say const matches, and here this is going to be a two-dimensional array. In this one, we can add these two things together. So we can say something like matches dot push, and here in the push we are going to add both of the elements. So we are going to say current element and matched element, or is it, no, it's element to compare. So we are adding element to compare. Once we have done this, we can loop over matches, or actually I'm going to be using the reduce method, so I can loop it with a promise to add that sort of delay. So I can do something like here I can say matches dot reduce, and I'm going to do that after this function's declaration. Again, console log programmer. So I'm going to say matches.reduce, and here I can say accumulator and next, and then I'm going to run this using an arrow function. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially say return accumulator.then, because I'm running this in a way that it's going to run with promises. And then I can say something like return next, or we could say something like click matches next. So I'm going to pass the each item that we are pushing just like this, and this should essentially be an array like this. So this is an array because I said this is a two-dimensional array, so this is going to be just like this. Now when I pass this next into click matches, we get here element 1 and element 2, right? So when we get this, we can do something like return a new promise, and here also, just so that I don't forget, we're going to start with a promise dot resolve. All right, and in here we are going to return a new promise. We are going to say resolve, and here I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to first say set timeout, and then I can say something like this. Okay, and then I can say, hey, let's do element 1 dot click. Then I'm going to do another set timeout, so set timeout, and here this time we are going to do element 2 dot click. So here I can say something like just take like 200 milliseconds and then click element 2, so click, and then also when that's done, then you resolve. When we resolve, this is going to return back and do the next item or the next pair per se. Now this set timeout, the first one doesn't have any timeout here, so I can probably give it something like a 1500. So what should happen is that each time a previous promise is resolved, it would take 1500 milliseconds to execute the next one. And that kind of makes sense to me. So we are running click matches.next, and I think this should work. But I've just written so much code without even testing anything. That's bad. But yeah, we're hopeful. So let's see if this works. Oh, okay. Okay. Look at that. Woohoo! This is amazing. And there you go. We got a winner. If I go to home, click let's go, create a new game, and try out my code again, this is gonna blow my mind. So I'm gonna start this, wait for a second, and now here I can quickly go and run this command, and let's see. We got the matches. Each match is being clicked, and as soon as someone would be trying to measure everything, my script is actually hacking the game to get us a winner. That's super cool. So if you're interested in how do I fix this issue, let me know in the comments and I'll create a video on that as well. In the meantime, if you want to impress your friends, you should be able to find this script that I wrote right in the description of this video. If you find this video useful, if you learned something, let me know in the comments. Share this video with everyone, subscribe to the channel, and as always, happy coding.